When you suddenly find yourself lost, trapped in an environment where every direction looks the same and every step forward feels like a step deeper into the unknown, a profound shift happens within you. The world you once knew transforms into an overwhelming maze, and the comforting certainty of safety vanishes into a distant memory. Whether you have wandered into a dark, uncharted cave, become disoriented in the dense labyrinth of a forest, been cast adrift on an endless ocean, or stranded amidst the burning sands of a vast desert, the experience taps into a primal corner of the human psyche, the instinct to survive against all odds. This is not just a story of being lost, it is the story of fear, resilience, ingenuity, and the sheer will to live that defines us as human beings. Imagine the oppressive silence of a cave around you, the darkness thick enough to feel, swallowing every sound and thought. Your heartbeat races, the cold seeps into your bones as you grasp at memories of light. You realize that this abyss has no clear pathway out, and with every step, the real danger isn't just the physical environment but the creeping tendrils of panic that threaten to consume your mind. The primal question emerges: what now? In this moment, the choice you make between surrender and survival becomes the defining moment of your existence. Survival within a cave demands something extraordinary, mastering calming chaos, learning to navigate without sight, listening to the whispers of the earth itself to trace a path toward freedom. Now, picture the thick canopy of a forest, the sunlight fragmented and filtered through a dense tapestry of leaves above. The ground beneath you is a patchwork of roots and leaf litter, every direction promising nothing but more green and shadow. How quickly the forest can become a labyrinth, with every familiar landmark dissolving into an endless repetition of trees and shadows. The discomfort isn't merely physical, it's psychological. You confront the primal fear of isolation, the primal dread of the wild, and the gnawing uncertainty that no one knows where you are or if help will ever come. Yet in this forced separation from civilization, the forest teaches you its ancient rules: how to find water that sustains, how to build shelter from the gifts of nature, how to listen to its vague signals of life and danger, and most importantly, how to keep hope burning bright amid uncertainty. Or imagine the vast blue sprawl of the open sea, an isolation so profound that the horizon seems to swallow you whole. Drifting endlessly, surrounded only by water and sky, you face a challenge no less daunting than the terrestrial wilderness: the battle against thirst, exhaustion, exposure, and despair. The ocean's endless expanse amplifies every sensation of loneliness and powerlessness. But it also tests a deep reserve within you, a push to conserve energy, to protect yourself from the relentless sun by day and chilling cold by night, to signal for help with the barest tools at your disposal, and to hold fast to the fragile thread of hope while the waves carry you far from everything known. Lastly, envision the stark, relentless heat of the desert, a place where the sun seems to scorch not just the skin but the very spirit. With minimal water and treacherous terrain, the desert strips life to its barest essentials: water, shade, shelter, and the will to keep taking one step at a time. Here, the dangers are silent and invisible: deadly heat stroke, dehydration, shifting sands that make every movement a struggle. Yet within these harsh conditions lies a brutal, unyielding beauty, a test of human endurance that demands calm deliberation, resourceful use of every element the desert provides, and quiet endurance of extremes. The desert does not yield easily, but those who learn its rules can find salvation in its enigmatic vastness. Each of these environments, caves, forests, the sea, and deserts, represent more than just places on a map. They symbolize the edge of human experience where vulnerability meets the indomitable instinct to live. Despite their differences in climate and geography, What unites these settings is the way they strip humans down to their essence, raw, exposed, and at the mercy of forces greater than themselves. And yet, within this rawness, there is profound hope. Stories of survival pepper every culture, men and women who faced the abyss, harnessed ancient wisdom, embraced calm over chaos, and emerged alive, forever changed but triumphant. The secret to surviving such ordeals lies not just in physical tools or knowledge but in the mastery of the mind. Panic is the enemy, clarity is the ally. Every expert survivalist, every person who has walked back from the brink of disappearance, tells the same thing: the mind governs the body's ability to cope. Learning to steady breath, focus on small achievable goals, ration supplies, and send signals to the outside world becomes a matter of life and death. These lessons have been passed down through generations, from indigenous tribes who mastered the wilderness, experienced sailors who survived thousand-mile drifts, to explorers charting unknown terrains. Their combined wisdom forms the core of what it means to survive. This exploration is not just an academic exercise or abstract survival guide. It is an immersive journey into the human spirit's harshest tests. It ventures beyond instructions into the emotional landscape where fear, hope, despair, and courage collide. It is about those who, when faced with overwhelming odds, chose to fight rather than fade away. For anyone who has ever felt the shiver of losing their way, whether physically lost in the wild or emotionally adrift in life, these stories offer more than just survival tips. They offer a blueprint for resilience. This narrative of survival is not constrained by time or place. It continues today in the jungles, caves, deserts, and oceans around the world. It unfolds in the recounting of every rescue operation, every whispered strategic choice in the dark, every desperate attempt to light a fire or spot a faraway helicopter. By understanding the no-nonsense realities of these environments through the lived experience of others, we prepare not only bodies but minds for whatever challenges the uncertainty of life may bring. As the journey through these survival scenarios begins, what matters most is capturing the rawness of human emotion, fear, determination, ingenuity, blending scientific knowledge with personal testimony. The wisdom embedded in ages of human experience becomes a vital lantern lighting the way out of despair and into hope. This is the beginning of an exploration where every heartbeat counts, every breath is treasured, and the story of survival is written in the quiet moments of courage that most will never witness but all can learn from. Welcome to the edge of human endurance, where lost means not hopeless, and survival becomes the ultimate testament to the power of life itself. When plunged into the enveloping darkness of a cave, the landscape of survival shifts from the open and visible to a shadowed realm where senses are both heightened and challenged. The first and most critical step is to control the rising panic that threatens to cloud judgment and drain precious energy. The mind can become a maze as confusing as the cavern itself, twisting fears into shadows and whispers. Yet, survival depends on cultivating calm, a deliberate slowing of thoughts, focusing on simple actions, on one footfall at a time, on one breath after another. It is within this quiet control that clarity emerges, allowing the lost traveler to start mapping an invisible path through the twisting passages. In the darkness of caves, light becomes the most precious commodity. Without it, every step risks injury, exhaustion, or disorientation deeper into the labyrinth. This is why any source of steady illumination must be preserved with meticulous care. Flashlights, headlamps, even a single spark of a match can mean the difference between confusion and direction. The flicker of light against jagged walls reveals clues, the texture of rocks, moisture patterns, and subtle shifts in the tunnel's shape helping to construct an internal map when visual cues are scarce. Prioritizing the conservation of these light sources while learning to slowly adapt the eyes to the dimness can stretch the time a person has before darkness becomes overwhelming. Orientation inside a cave is notoriously difficult. The absence of natural landmarks forces reliance on mental notes and tactile feedback. The wall's texture, the slope of the ground, the echoes of footsteps all become guides. A simple but effective technique is to methodically mark the trail at regular intervals. Making these marks with rocks, sticks, or even scratches on softer surfaces creates a breadcrumb trail to retrace. But caution is essential. Not every mark is foolproof, and in tight or unsafe passages, relying on physical markings can be a double-edged sword. Ultimately, the most reliable strategy is mental, keeping track of the path taken, maintaining a sense of direction even as the brain struggles with spatial confusion. Water is a paradox inside caves. Moisture drips and pools may offer a life-saving source, yet the water's purity is always uncertain in unexplored surroundings. Thirst becomes a whisper that grows louder as dehydration threatens survival, but indiscriminate drinking can be deadly. Learning to identify the safest locations, typically where fresh water seeps from the rock faces or collects in pools undisturbed by other sources, can sustain life. Filtering or purifying methods are rarely available, so cautious sampling, coupled with weight given to natural indicators like nearby plant growth or insect presence, are valuable survival instincts. These decisions dictate much of one's ability to endure time underground. The body's energy reserves and temperature regulation are constant battles deep within caves. The air is often cold, damp, and unforgiving, and physical exertion must be carefully balanced. Rest is vital, but it must be weighed against the pressing need to find an exit. Small, efficient movements, slow, deliberate steps save energy while minimizing the risk of slips or falls. Clothing can make or break survival. Wet or inadequate layering accelerates hypothermia. When no options exist, improvising insulation from natural materials, dry leaves, moss, or even folding clothing to trap heat becomes a necessary skill. Caves possess another invisible danger: air quality. Stale air, low oxygen levels, or pockets of toxic gases can insidiously sap strength or cause unconsciousness. Awareness of this fact means paying attention to physical symptoms like dizziness, headaches, or difficulty breathing. If these signs occur, survivors must ensure they are in better ventilated chambers or retreat slowly toward known fresh airflow. This fine balance between exploration and safety is driven by instinct but requires careful listening to the body's signals. Signaling for rescue within a cave is profoundly challenging. The structure muffles sound, and light signals may be invisible beyond small cracks. Yet survivors have innovated desperate ways to attract attention, tapping on rocks to create rhythmic sounds that may carry through tunnels or steadying light sources near obvious openings. Every action that creates a pattern recognizable by rescuers is valuable. Time spent making signals, even in isolation, is not wasted. It generates hope and preserves connection to the outside world. Emotional survival inside a cave is as important as the physical. The solitude and silence wrap tight around the mind, threatening isolation and despair. But the human spirit tends to discover its strength here. Mindfulness, mental recitation of memories, planning small goals, or even concocting stories all serve to anchor consciousness and stave off hopelessness. The simple act of maintaining a routine, checking supplies, retracing prior steps mentally, or listening carefully to natural sounds breaks the paralyzing monotony. This inner work, the cultivation of mental resilience, is what differentiates the survivors from the lost. Transitioning to the woodland wilderness, the senses now awaken in a different scenario: dappled sunlight, earthy smells, flitting shadows, and the chorus of wildlife becoming a constant backdrop. The sheer density and scale of the forest can overwhelm, but it also offers vital resources for survival: water from streams, food in the form of edible plants, fruits, and small game, and materials for shelter from branches and leaves. However, the first important lesson in forest survival is to avoid reckless wandering. Movement without direction can lead deeper into the tangle of confusion. Instead, staying put or moving slowly while leaving signs behind increases the chances of being found. Water procurement is the cornerstone of survival in a forest. Streams or puddles may appear inviting but can be contaminated. Recognizing natural filtration water flowing downstream, areas where plants cluster heavily, helps identify safer sources. Techniques for purification: boiling if a fire is possible, or filtering water through cloth greatly reduce risk of illness. Hydration supports all bodily functions and is crucial to maintaining mental clarity for other survival tasks. Food in the forest, while potentially abundant, is not without dangers. Foraging requires knowledge of edible plants and insects, as well as avoiding toxic species. Learning to identify safe varieties based on shape, texture, smell, and local knowledge can keep starvation at bay. At times, trapping small animals or fishing can be part of the strategy, but such efforts consume energy and require patience and skill. Balancing caloric intake with expenditure is a delicate negotiation. Each effort is a gamble towards long-term survival. Shelter construction in the forest involves protecting oneself from the elements and predators. Using fallen branches, leaves, and moss to build a simple lean-to or debris hut shields from wind and rain. The ground beneath must be insulated from moisture and cold by layering natural materials to prevent heat loss. A fire near the shelter not only provides warmth but also repels insects and attracts rescuers. Fire mastery becomes a critical art: knowing what materials ignite, how to carry embers safely, and maintaining a consistent flame through wet conditions is often a matter of life and death. Navigating the forest requires a keen awareness of environmental cues. The position of the sun, the flow of streams, and the orientation of moss on trees are subtle markers that, when understood, create a mental compass. Backing these natural signs with deliberate direction, marking breaking small branches, stacking stones, or using natural dyes helps maintain bearing even when the underbrush obscures the horizon. Unlike caves, forests usually allow for radio signals or occasional calls to carry, so conserving energy to make noise or light signals is essential. The forest also brings the psychological challenge of maintaining hope amid uncertainty. The sounds of wildlife can be both comforting and unsettling, reminding survivors they are part of a larger ecosystem but also beneath its predator hierarchy. Creating rituals, such as marking days, reciting affirmations, or recalling loved ones, help stabilize the mind amid the chaos. Awareness of mental health is vital. Surviving is more than enduring physical elements, it is about maintaining the identity and willpower that drive humans to seek rescue. Moving from the woods to the sea, the isolation becomes a different kind of wilderness, expansive and merciless. The ocean is both cradle and tomb, cradling lost souls on a floating stage of uncertainty, yet threatening to swallow them whole the moment they lose vigilance. Drinking seawater is a fatal mistake, so conserving fresh water is paramount. Any drop becomes sacred, rationed with ruthless precision. Hydration, body temperature regulation, and signaling for rescue are the pillars of survival at sea. The endless horizon offers no landmarks, making navigation a mental battle. Survivors often mark the position of the sun and stars, aligning makeshift compasses with debris or sky reflections. Floating debris can indicate currents or nearby land, clues that are as valuable as water itself. Energy conservation becomes the watchword. Moving too much exhausts precious reserves, while remaining too still risks exposure to sun and cold. Finding balance is a fluctuating challenge that requires constant monitoring and adjustment. Exposure to sun by day and cold at night tests the limits of human physiology. Protecting skin with clothing or improvised shields from debris is essential to avoid burns and heat stroke. At night, hypothermia remains a creeping threat despite the warmth of daylight. Wrapping oneself in any available material and seeking shelter beneath rafts or debris prevents harmful temperature drops. Fire or flares, if available, not only provide warmth but signal distress in vast expanses that otherwise swallow sound and light. Signaling is both challenge and lifeline. Visual signals such as mirrors, bright cloths, and smoke plumes demand clear line of sight, whereas sound signals like whistles or banging against containers reach only short distances and less aided by weather conditions. The ocean tests patience and persistence. The survivor's attempts at signaling often go unseen or unheard, yet each attempt reinforces connection to hope and rescue. The ocean's psychological theater is vast and brutal. Days blend into nights, time loses definition. Isolation weighs heavily on the mind, while waves and weather continuously press against willpower. The stories of survivors recount moments of surrender and renewed resolve, despair and intense focus. Survival requires maintaining an internal dialogue, cultivating an anchored sense of purpose no matter how distant rescue feels. Finally, the desert stands as one of nature's most brutal tests of endurance. Its glaring sun, searing heat, and endless sand strip away comfort, hiding dangers in immobility as much as in movement. Water scarcity dominates every decision, each breath seeming to suck life away from the body. Shade becomes a precious refuge, and the earth beneath offers little but harsh sand or jagged rock. Survival demands acute awareness of time and exertion, limiting movement during the heat of the day and resting until the cooler twilight. Finding and conserving water in the desert requires immense creativity and knowledge. Cacti, dew collection methods, or finding shaded depressions that conserve moisture can all mean survival. Drinking from unknown sources without preparation, however, risks dehydration or poisoning. Sand traps, rock formations, or animal tracks may lead to water, but the search must be balanced against risk and energy expenditure. Shelter in the desert must protect against the extremes of heat and suddenly dropping nighttime temperatures. Burrowing into shade, building windbreaks with rocks or clothing, or constructing lean-tos with minimal materials helps maintain core body temperature. Clothing covering the body and head shields against sunburn and heat exhaustion. Yet shelter also serves a psychological role. It becomes a personal sanctuary, a shield against the overwhelming vastness that can crush the survivor's spirit. The desert's open horizon offers a paradox. Rescue may be visible yet seemingly unreachable. Creating signals, fire, mirrors, patterned shapes in sand provides a chance to catch the eye of distant searchers. Maintaining hope in this empty expanse demands mental fortitude. Survivors speak of focusing on small goals, imagining reunion with loved ones, and relying on inner strength to continue step by weary step. Across these landscapes, cave, forest, sea, and desert, the raw essence of survival emerges. It is the intricate dance between mind and body, knowledge and instinct, despair and hope. These environments test the edges of human endurance but also reveal the incredible capacity within each person to adapt, endure, and ultimately triumph. The journey is as much about the landscape outside as the landscape within, where every challenge becomes a reflection of resilience and every breath a victory against the vast unknown. Navigating the wilderness requires a blend of knowledge, instinct, and patience, a dance with nature's rhythms where every movement, every decision, shifts the balance between survival and surrender. The forest, teeming with life yet concealing countless dangers, becomes both a provider and a challenge to those who venture into its depths unprepared. At first glance, the overwhelming density of green, the tangled undergrowth and towering trees, may seem like an impenetrable wall, but beneath this apparent chaos lies a living library of survival clues and resources waiting to be understood. The initial focus in any forest survival situation is awareness, not just an awareness of surroundings but a deep, intuitive sense of place. Every rustle in the leaves, every bird call, every shifting shadow can speak volumes if you learn to listen truly. Understanding where water gathers, which paths animals frequent, or which trees bear edible fruit transforms the forest from a foe into a vital ally. This sensibility grows slowly, built from careful observation and the patience to absorb the forest's subtle language. Even the weather becomes a whispered conversation: clouds gathering, changes in wind patterns, sudden drops in temperature, all forecasting actions that can save a life when predicted accurately. Water is the first currency of survival. Streams winding through valleys, rain pooling in leaf cups, morning dew clinging to spiderwebs, these seemingly small harbors of moisture are lifelines. But survival in the wild requires discernment. Stagnant pools may breed invisible threats, and rushing streams may conceal treacherous currents. The art is in choosing wisely, favoring clear, flowing waters downstream or spring-fed pools surrounded by lush plant life. Every drop consumed is victory, necessitating care to protect from poisoning or illness. Without proper purification methods, boiling when possible, filtering through cloth or sand, or using chemical purifiers, water can equally become a silent adversary. Sustenance in the forest is a balance between knowledge and restraint. The green canopy hides both nourishment and peril. Mushrooms may be delicious but occasionally deadly. Recognizing edible plants requires study of shape, color, and locality, often learned through experience or shared wisdom. Acorns, berries, nuts, and roots provide intermittent energy, but some demand preparation, cooking or soaking to render them safe. Hunting and fishing present another frontier, setting snares, traps, or making simple fishing lines transforms patience into protein. The tools needed might be simple cordage, sharpened sticks, or rocks fashioned into cutting edges, but their effective use demands a calm determination disciplined by necessity. Shelter represents the intersection of physical protection and psychological sanctuary. In the wild, exposure to rain, wind, insects, and cold saps strength and morale. Constructing a shelter from debris, branches, and leaves, or finding natural formations such as caves or hollowed trees, shields the body's precious heat and guards against wildlife intrusion. The shape and location matter, a lean-to facing away from dominant winds, elevated ground to avoid moisture, and proximity to water without risking insect swarms. Building a fire nearby offers warmth, a way to cook and purify, and a beacon to potential rescuers. Fire mastery: gathering dry tinder, managing sparks, nurturing flames is a pursuit of patience, practice, and respect for nature's unpredictability. Navigation may seem daunting when every tree looks similar and paths disappear beneath dense foliage. However, forest survival teaches reliance on natural compasses, watching the sun's path, noting moss growth patterns which often favor the shaded north side of trees, or following the flow of streams which generally descend to civilization's edges. Marking trails with intentional signs, stacked stones, broken branches, or even discrete ribbons creates a breadcrumb trail for retracing steps. In unfamiliar or dense woods, maintaining a mental map by periodically pausing, reviewing surroundings, and aligning with known landmarks conserves energy and prevents disorientation. Wildlife exists as a constant reminder that the forest's generosity has limits. Understanding the behavior of animals, from the smallest insects signaling water to large mammals marking territory, can provide clues to food and water sources and warn of danger. Avoiding encounters with predators demands vigilance, storing food away from sleeping areas, using smoke and fire to deter insects and animals, and maintaining clean campsites. Sometimes, sharing the forest means humility. The knowledge that not every animal is adversary and coexistence often means survival. Psychological endurance weaves through every action. Isolation can cast long shadows, amplifying fears and provoking despair. The forest's silence can feel like a wall closing in, the heart pounding louder than footsteps. Yet survivors often speak of a strange comfort found in the wild's rhythm, a meditative engagement with the present moment that breaks the chains of panic. Techniques such as controlled breathing, mentally listing goals, recounting stories, or imagining reunion with waiting loved ones anchor the mind. The act of creating structure, dividing days into sections of foraging, building, resting, transforms wandering into a purposeful journey. As night falls, the forest changes its personality. Darkness invites cold and creatures of the night. The canopy that once let in warm light becomes a shroud. At this hour, the shelter's protection feels most vital. Fire's glow becomes a shield, a source of morale against the threat of unseen eyes. Sounds that were once companions may turn into disquieting reminders that the forest is alive in ways unfathomable to the untrained ear. Staying vigilant yet calm, using the quiet to rest deeply without surrendering to fear, is critical. The forest, with its interplay of shelter and exposure, life and risk, comfort and danger, ultimately teaches humility and respect. It reminds us that survival is not a conquest but a delicate balance, a negotiation with forces beyond control. But it also reveals a profound truth, that humans possess an extraordinary capacity to adapt, to observe, and to persist. Survival in the forest is not just about endurance of physical hardship but the cultivation of wisdom, patience, and an acceptance of the unfolding experience. The progression from this understanding leads naturally to mastery of practical survival skills honed through experience and knowledge. The ability to make fire, for instance, transcends mere utility. It is an act of creation, converting raw natural elements into warmth and light that battle cold and solitude. Techniques span from using modern tools like lighters and ferrocerium rods to primitive skills, friction fire using bow drills or hand drills that connect survivors to ancient human ingenuity. Recognizing tinder is essential. Dry leaves, birch bark, or fibrous plant material carefully gathered before wet weather becomes critical. Knowing how to prepare kindling and arrange the fire lay teepee, lean-to, or log cabin styles determines whether the flame will flourish or falter. Fire is the nexus that sustains in many other ways: cooking food, purifying water, deterring animals, and signaling rescuers. Water purification follows closely in importance. Boiling water neutralizes pathogens but requires fuel. Filtering through cloth removes dirt and some parasites, while chemical tablets can sterilize water when available. These processes may seem basic, but execution demands attention, patience, and prioritization amid stress. Knowing the quality of water sources, flowing versus standing, clear versus muddy, proximity to animal tracks, frames decisions that prevent illness that can be fatal in survival scenarios. Shelter construction evolves from simple survival to strategically chosen locations that optimize protection. Using natural features, such as positioning beneath dense tree branches or rock overhangs, conserves energy and defense. When nature offers no obvious refuge, shelters made from available materials show the ingenuity of survivors. Binding branches together, piling insulation layers, and camouflaging structures all serve both physical and psychological needs. Shelter tames the wilderness. It creates a space where the mind can rest and the body recover. The art of trapping and foraging extends survival timelines. Simple snares, fish traps, or deadfall devices utilize the forest's resources intelligently. Constructed from saplings, vines, or cordage, traps allow passive food collection, enabling energy reserves to be conserved. Foragers who identify patterns in growth, favor edible roots and berries, and avoid dangers like poisonous plants increase not just survival odds but comfort and morale. Equally critical is developing situational awareness. The forest's dynamic conditions, from sudden storms to shifting seasons, demand constant vigilance. Learning to read clouds, recognize animal behavior changes, and prepare for potential hazards enhances safety. This knowledge becomes a survival kernel that grows into cautious confidence. First aid skills represent another pillar. Cuts, insect bites, sprains, and burns all require immediate care to prevent infection or disability. Using natural remedies such as certain leaves with antiseptic properties or improvising splints from wood teaches creative problem solving. Survival is not just enduring the environment but healing the body to maintain functionality. Communication and signaling weigh heavily as shadows lengthen. Whistles, mirrors, and fire provide ways to bridge the gap to rescue. Learning international distress signals, such as 3 short whistle blasts or fire pulses, standardizes silent pleas for aid. Practicing signaling skills ensures readiness when opportunity presents. Emerging from the forest, night into day mirrors the survivor's journey, moving from uncertainty and vulnerability toward knowledge and empowerment. Each skill acquired, each observation internalized, builds confidence. The forest itself becomes a teacher, not an adversary. The challenge transforms to opportunity as the survivor deciphers this complex, living world and carves a path to safety. This gradual transformation highlights the dynamic interplay between the human spirit and wild nature. Survival becomes a story of discovery, of learning not only how to endure but to live attentively and respectfully in the wild's embrace. The forest's untold stories, whispered through rustling leaves and shifting light, become not just lessons but guiding melodies for those willing to listen and adapt. As this journey deepens, the lessons unfold further down to the very practical skills of toolmaking, rope work, navigation, and psychological resilience that interlace to form a tapestry of survival competence and hope. It is a reminder that nowhere is too wild, no challenge too great, when knowledge, calm, and determination unite. Drifting into the expansive wilderness of the ocean, the rules of survival transform dramatically. Unlike the tactile challenges of forest or cave survival, the ocean's vastness imposes an almost surreal scale of isolation and vulnerability. Here, surrounded by an endless horizon of water and sky, the first sensation is the overwhelming paradox: how to feel both infinitesimally small and dangerously exposed at once. The ocean's elemental forces, its waves, currents, sun, and storm dictate the survival narrative, turning every decision into a life-or-death calculation against time and the relentless environment. The core challenge begins with hydration, a cruel irony at sea where water is abundant but undrinkable. Salt water not only fails to quench thirst but accelerates dehydration, forcing survivalists to ration precious freshwater reserves, sometimes down to mere drops a day. In these moments, the ability to conserve energy becomes paramount. Every movement must be weighed for necessity. Excessive physical exertion increases sweat and thirst, rapidly sapping the body's water stores and hastening collapse. Floating calmly, adopting a neutral buoyancy, and minimizing movement balances survival's tension. Remain active enough to stay aware, yet still enough to conserve vital resources. Exposure to the sun's ruthless glare amplifies the ocean's danger. The unfiltered sunlight beats down from an endless blue vault, reflecting off waves to double its intensity. Without protective clothing or shelter, skin burns rapidly, leading to heat stroke, sunburn, and aggravated dehydration. Improvisation becomes a survival skill, using clothing, life jackets, or debris as shields, creating shade when possible, and turning away from direct sunlight all serve to mitigate the sun's merciless assault. At night, temperatures plunge suddenly, and hypothermia may set in, even in tropical waters. Wrapping oneself in available materials, huddling close if with others, and continuously generating body heat are crucial defenses against cold's silent threat. Signaling another vessel or aerial rescuer becomes a desperate endeavor in the vast, empty sea. Visual cues like bright-colored clothing, reflective surfaces, mirrors, or flashing lights can catch attention across great distances but require knowledge and patience to employ effectively. Sound signals, such as whistles or tapping on floating objects, offer another method, although sound travels inconsistently over water and is often absorbed by wave noise. Survivors often learn to conserve their signaling efforts for timed intervals, understanding that energy and morale hinge on measured hope. The knowledge that each signal could bring salvation translates into meticulous preparation and disciplined restraint. Mental endurance arises as a titanic battle in ocean survival. Days blur into nights with little change in scenery. The calm surface may turn suddenly tempestuous. The ocean's rhythm plays tricks on perception, swallowing time and optimism alike. Survivors recount oscillations between despair and determination, moments when the vast emptiness seems to stretch infinitely, followed by intense focus on small goals, a distant gull, a floating log, a swell's pattern. Creating mental anchors, contemplating loved ones, planning imagined futures, reciting calming mantras intensifies resilience. This psychological fortitude is often the demarcation between those who survive and those who surrender. Food supply at sea is a complex challenge. Opportunistic catching of fish or seabirds requires tools and skill, often limited in survival settings. Nets or hooks crafted from debris, fishing lines from threads in clothing, and patience become tools of sustenance. Foraging seaweed or plankton is possible in some cases but risks digestive upset without proper preparation. Each morsel acquired may extend survival another day, underscoring the delicate balance between effort and reward where energy conservation always weighs heavier. Protection from marine hazards is a continuous concern. Exposure to jellyfish stings, sharp coral, or dangerous sea creatures demands vigilance. Knowledge of currents, wave patterns, and weather signs informs when to stay still and when to prepare for abrupt changes. The ocean's moods are unpredictable, sudden storms may descend without warning, and wave heights are threatening to overwhelm fragile rafts or debris. Survivors learn to identify calming versus violent conditions, adjusting their actions accordingly. In the realm of improvisation, survival at sea benefits greatly from preparedness or quick thinking to utilize floating debris. Objects such as shattered wood, drums, barrels, or even plastic fragments provide buoyancy, potential shelter, or storage for precious supplies. Constructing makeshift rafts or sails from these materials extends survival by creating platforms above water, mitigating the exhausting energy of treading water or swimming. Tarps, fabric from clothes, or natural materials may be fashioned into sunshades, temporary shelter from spray, or signaling devices. Creativity thus becomes as vital as patience. Maintaining hydration sometimes involves perilous practices in desperate moments. Techniques like collecting rainwater, using solar stills fashioned from plastic sheets and containers, or carefully catching dew may supplement dwindling water supplies. Although impractical in fast-moving emergency situations, survivors who understand and can apply these methods gain critical advantages in prolonging life. As hours turn to days at sea, the physical toll manifests: sunken eyes, cracked lips, weakened limbs, and diminished reflexes, all signs that time is running against survival. Regular self-assessment and pacing of exertion become essential. Shivering or shaking signals impending hypothermia, severe thirst beckons the constant watch over fluid intake and heat exposure. These feedbacks from the body direct priorities and caution against pushing beyond limits. Survival stories from the ocean reveal the astonishing capacity of humans to adapt under pressure. Individuals recount moments of surrender transformed by unexpected rescue or bursts of ingenuity. Whether maintaining hope through sheer will, learning to fish from found materials, or channeling rising panic into careful action, these narratives illuminate survival as a multifaceted battle: physical, psychological, and emotional. The ocean, while imposing and vast, is a chaotic system rather than a faceless threat. Marine life, weather patterns, and floating ecosystems offer clues to location and resource availability. Migratory birds circling overhead may hint at nearby land. Floating debris follows currents that can lead to coastlines. Understanding these natural signposts increases chances of rescue. This intricate web of oceanic signals becomes an essential knowledge base for survivors who remain connected to the wider world through observation and patience. Temperature fluctuations also govern survival dynamics. Warm tropical waters expose survivors to dehydration and sunstroke but offer relatively mild nights. In contrast, colder seas sap body heat rapidly, requiring distinct defensive measures against hypothermia. Protective clothing, insulation from water exposure, and efficient use of limited shelter materials counter these seasonal challenges. Being prepared for local climate variations or adjusting strategies accordingly can mean life or death. As rescue possibilities persist, the survivor's balance between waiting and active searching emerges. Staying with a damaged vessel or raft often increases visibility for rescuers but carries risks if conditions deteriorate. Conversely, venturing into uncertain waters in search of land or ships risks exhaustion and disorientation. Making this decision requires weighing current physical condition, environment, and survival skills. Informed judgment, often born of experience or knowledge, dictates when to stay still and when to move. With patience, mental acuity, and adaptability, survivors transform the ocean from an unyielding adversary into a stage where human resilience plays out. The endless water, while isolating, also offers paths and clues, shifting from threat to context. This dynamic interaction underscores survival's essence, a dialogue between the isolated individual and the vast natural world, where knowledge, observation, and spirit become lifelines. Many survivors reflect on the profound interplay between despair and hope, emphasizing that survival is often a mental rather than physical struggle. The ocean demands a calm and surrender to its rhythms while fiercely challenging the human will to endure. The stories remind us that the difference between loss and rescue lies not only in gear or training but in the intangible quality of steadfastness combined with ingenuity. This intricate balance of external survival skills and internal psychological strength forms the core of oceanic survival tales. The vast, indifferent sea juxtaposed with human vulnerability creates a profound narrative of endurance, discovery, and ultimate triumph. It is a space where every breath counts, every decision echoes through time, and every moment is a testament to the resilience of life amid endless horizons. In the realm of wilderness survival, mastering the mind alongside mastering physical skills creates a synergy that often decides who lives and who succumbs to the environment's relentless challenge. When faced with the harsh unknown, every instinct, the instinct to panic, despair, or flee, must be tempered with knowledge, self-control, and relentless perseverance. Awareness becomes the first and constant necessity. It is not merely about knowing where to find water or how to start a fire, but an all-encompassing sensitivity to the environment and oneself, a choreography of perception and action that unfolds with every passing moment. Before venturing deeper into the wilderness, understanding the lay of the land is crucial. Mountains, valleys, forests, rivers, and plains each possess unique characteristics that dictate survival strategies. Topography informs how water flows, how wildlife migrates, and how weather manifests. Thus, cultivating the skill to read terrain, learning to spot ridgelines, identify valleys, and understand watershed areas becomes a foundational art. With this knowledge, the survivor navigates smarter paths, conserves energy by avoiding dangerous steep ascents or unstable grounds, and finds where nature naturally offers life-sustaining resources. The knowledge of flora and fauna adds layers to survival strategy. Recognizing edible plants, knowing which berries are safe, which roots can nourish and which are toxic, transforms the forest floor from a risky place to a pantry. Plants like wild onions, dandelions, or watercress may provide minerals and vitamins essential for longevity. For animals, seeing tracks and scat reveals their habits and presence, guiding hunters or warning of predators. Understand the delicate dance of the ecosystem, harvest responsibly to ensure long-term safety and ethical survival. Weather and climate mastery comes next, crucial in a world governed by nature's unpredictability. Sudden storms, drastic temperature drops, or seasons dictate the viability of survival actions. Recognizing cloud formations or changes in atmospheric pressure can warn of impending rain or severe weather, prompting preparations for shelter or slowing movements to conserve warmth. Knowledge of prevailing winds and temperature ranges supports effective layering of clothing and shelter placement, mitigating the risk of heat stroke or hypothermia. Hazards unique to each wilderness environment lurk in every corner. Poisonous plants with deceptive appearances, venomous insects and snakes hidden beneath leaves or rocks, and natural disasters such as avalanches or flash floods demand respect and vigilance. The survivor learns to identify these dangers early by observation and experience, creating strategies to avoid or safely confront them. Tracking and observation sharpen skills to recognize subtle signs: broken twigs, disturbed soil, or feather tufts that signal animal movement or human presence. This tracking skill serves a dual purpose: locating food and water and deducing possible routes or human activity nearby, improving chances of rescue. Wilderness resource awareness transforms survival from raw endurance to strategic engagement. Knowing where streams gather, where sunlight encourages useful plant growth, and which wooded areas provide firewood or shelter materials empowers survivors to make informed choices. At the same time, understanding what materials do not belong in the local environment warns of hazards or human contamination. Cultural and historical awareness deepens respect and knowledge of the wilderness. Recognizing ancient trails, understanding traditional uses of plants and animals by indigenous people, or knowing sacred sites adds context. This awareness honors the land's heritage and often offers survival insights passed through generations. Situational awareness integrates all senses in a vigilant state. Survivors monitor environmental changes, sounds, and smells, continuously adapting to real-time conditions. This alertness prevents surprises and allows early intervention before minor discomforts escalate into emergencies. Firecraft is a cornerstone skill, spanning modern conveniences and ancient wisdom. Survivalists master various techniques, using ferro rods for sparks, crafting friction fires with bow or hand drills, employing solar ignition with lenses, or striking flint and steel. Understanding tinder's nature from dry leaves, birch bark to petroleum jelly-soaked cotton ensures success in sparking flames. Fire provides warmth, cooks food, sterilizes water, deters wildlife, and signals for help. The construction of the fire, whether teepee for quick ignition, lean-to shelter the flame, or Dakota hole for a low-profile fire, responds to specific needs, weather, and terrain. Proficiency in firecraft turns desperation into hope. Shelter building is both an art and necessity. The survivor assesses natural options: rock overhangs, dense thickets, fallen trees, and supplements them with constructed refuges using branches, leaves, vines, or fabric. Location selection optimizes protection, avoidance of flood paths, elevation to reduce dew and pests, and orientation to block wind or sun exposure. Insulation within shelters traps warmth using layers of moss or dry grasses. Thoughtful construction defends against exposure and creates psychological comfort, anchoring the spirit against wilderness brutality. Procurement of food extends survival past immediate hours. Emergency rations held in backup supplies buffer the unknown, but foraging and hunting sustain long-term endurance. Identifying seasonal availability of edible flora, mastering simple fishing techniques using lines or spears, and crafting snares or traps with springs, nooses, or deadfalls enable efficient food gathering. Ethical consideration preserves ecosystem balance and ensures legal survival methods. Regular practice of these skills under various conditions enhances confidence and readiness. Signaling blends technology and nature. Fires burn bright and smoke thick when crafted with fresh green vegetation create rescue lures. Ground signals patterns of rocks or logs arranged in internationally recognized distress symbols catch aerial attention. Flashlights, strobes, whistles, and mirrors boost signaling reach. Mastering standardized codes, like SOS in Morse or whistle blasts, conveys distress clearly. Wearing bright or reflective clothing improves visibility near rescue zones. Staying near open clearings and maintaining a signaling schedule ensure sustained chances of detection. Knot tying, often overlooked, unlocks the ability to build shelters, traps, stretchers, and gear, enhancing survival infrastructure. Mastering various knots bowline, clove hitch, taut line simplifies complex tasks, ensuring stability and safety. Practice underpins proficiency, awaiting the unpredictable challenges of the wild. Water, though abundant in many environments, demands purification. Boiling, filtering, or chemical treatment neutralizes pathogens that lurk in streams or puddles, preventing fatal illness. In absence of equipment, improvisation using improvised containers or UV exposure enhances water safety. Knowledge of where to find uncontaminated sources, fast-moving, spring-fed streams or catchments protected from animals preserves health. First aid cannot be overstated. Immediate responses to cuts, burns, bites, sprains, or shock prevent escalation. Wilderness medicine encompasses using natural antiseptics, fashioning bandages from fabric or plant fibers, and stabilizing injuries with splints or elevation. Understanding signs of infection, dehydration, or hypothermia triggers timely interventions critical for survival longevity. Psychological resilience weaves through every facet of survival. Establishing daily routines breaks the overwhelming monotony, easing mental burden by distributing effort over manageable goals. Goal setting short-term, such as building shelter today, or long-term envisioning rescue, fuels motivation. Positive visualization reminds survivors of strength and purpose. Stress management techniques, like controlled breathing, mindfulness, and muscle relaxation, counter anxiety and panic. When alone, maintaining positive self-talk and disciplined mental engagement becomes a bulwark against despair. Social dynamics in group survival sessions underpin survival potential. Communication fosters cohesion, morale, and coordinated actions. Encouragement, sharing resources, and collective problem-solving multiply chances of rescue. In absence of groups, internal dialogue simulates companionship, maintaining mental stability. Adaptability remains critical as wilderness conditions fluctuate unpredictably. Flexibility in strategy ensures response to weather shifts, resource availability, or injuries. Embracing change instead of resisting it fosters survival creativity and pragmatic decision-making. Survival teaches humility. Nature operates on rhythms indifferent to human will, requiring respect and harmonization rather than dominance. Yet through this respect, humans find strength. Survival becomes a narrative of discovery, of limits surpassed, knowledge deepened, and inner reserves revealed. From the moment survival becomes necessary, every sensory input, every meaningful action, every disciplined thought builds toward endurance. The wilderness, beyond hostile and unforgiving, becomes a teacher and mirror reflecting human strength and spirit. This journey, measured in mindful breath and steady footsteps, transforms desperation into hope, chaos into structure, and vulnerability into mastery. Here, at the edge of human limitation, survival transcends mere existence. It becomes the ultimate expression of life's tenacity and the profound will to hope beyond horizons unseen. Long-term survival in the wilderness represents the pinnacle of human resilience and adaptability. It's a test not simply of physical endurance but of strategic planning, deep knowledge, and mental fortitude so profound it becomes the foundation for sustained existence far from the comforts of civilization. While short-term emergencies may be survived through immediate actions and instinct, thriving over weeks, months, or even years demands a fundamentally different approach, one rooted in the comprehensive understanding of environment, cycles, and the interplay between body and mind. As history's hunter-gatherers proved, survival in nature is a long, dynamic process that requires harmony with the rhythms of the land. A cornerstone of long-term survival is preparation, and not just in terms of gear but mindset and strategy. Entering the wilderness without a cohesive plan is akin to walking blindfolded into a storm. Planning requires assessing the specific environment, the flora, fauna, water availability, and prevalent weather patterns, and aligning one's skills and supplies accordingly. For example, survival tactics in a dense boreal forest differ widely from those in arid shrublands or alpine terrains. Successful strategists choose their timings to coincide with natural abundance, such as berry ripening or seasonal fish migrations, enabling them to build reserves when resources peak. This cyclical understanding is integral to creating a sustainable food supply through gathering and hunting, preventing the inevitable pitfalls of starvation. Sustaining nutrition long-term demands mastering the multidimensional role of food procurement. Immediate emergency rations provide a critical initial buffer, but relying on stored provisions alone is neither feasible nor wise over extended periods. Instead, survivalists cultivate knowledge of wild edibles, learning to distinguish between nourishing plants and toxic lookalikes. They gather roots, nuts, berries, and other seasonal bounty while balancing effort and reward. Their learned economy here, prioritizing food sources that yield sufficient calories without expending disproportionate energy to obtain them. Pulses of high-energy protein, such as fish or small game, complement plant-based foraging, creating a balanced nutrient profile essential for maintaining body strength and cognitive function. Skills for trapping, fishing, and hunting underpin long-term food security. Primitive traps, deadfall, snares, and nooses allow passive hunting, liberating energy for other survival tasks. Skillful fishing techniques, from crafting hooks from bone fragments or wire to weaving nets from cordage, tap into abundant aquatic resources. The art of crafting traps and traps placement is honed through observation of animal behavior and patterns, blending patience with tactical precision. Effective food preservation techniques, smoking, drying, or salting meat and fish maximize resource longevity, an indispensable skill for buffering lean times or harsh seasons. Through these practices, survivalists mimic nature's endogenous sustainability, carefully managing the environment to ensure ongoing food access. Water is the lifeblood of survival. Without it, the body falters rapidly. Long-term survival strategies elevate water procurement to central importance, emphasizing sustained access and purification. Locating sources such as streams, lakes, or rain catchments begins with terrain reading and understanding hydrology. In some regions, collecting morning dew or building solar stills can augment supply, extracting moisture from air or soil. Purification transforms potentially contaminated water into safe consumption, utilizing boiling, filtering through cloth or sand, chemical tablets, or UV exposure. Understanding local pollution risks from animals or human debris guides decisions, reducing risks of gastrointestinal illness that can be fatal in the wild. Management of hydration often dictates the feasibility of all other efforts. Shelter embodies protection, restoration, and psychological sanctuary. For long-term survival, shelters evolve from simple windbreaks to crafted beacons of stability. Location choices reflect safety from floods, predators, and severe winds. Elevations prevent cold dampness and disease vectors, while proximity to water and food balance convenience with exposure. Shelter construction integrates natural materials with human ingenuity, layering insulation with moss, grasses, or leaves for warmth, reinforcing frames with branches or rocks. Seasonal adjustments, tightening shelter walls in winter, ventilating in summer, extend comfort and endurance. The sense of home that shelter creates nurtures morale, a factor as critical as physical protection in long-term existence. Mental resilience forms the invisible but vital framework upon which all survival actions rest. The psychological dimension in wilderness survival cannot be overstated. Extended isolation, uncertainty, and physical deprivation challenge the mind continuously. Developing a consistent routine brings order to chaos, breaking days into purposeful segments such as gathering food, reinforcing shelter, maintaining tools, and signaling. This structure fosters a sense of control and progress. Positive reinforcement techniques, such as goal setting, immediate, today's camp, and long-term, seasonal preparation, channel energy constructively. Visualization of rescue or reunion nurtures hope, while mindfulness and meditative breathing help manage anxiety and despair. Such mental practices ensure focus remains sharp, decisions rational, and spirit unhindered by panic. Adaptability surfaces as a core survival trait. The wilderness rarely offers static conditions, weather shifts suddenly, resources vary, and unexpected hazards emerge. Successful long-term survival depends on one's ability to reassess, modify plans, and innovate. Flexibility in shelter construction, food gathering techniques, and movement strategies allows coherence with changing landscape and climate. Experimentation, such as transitioning from plant foraging to trapping or shifting fishing methods with seasons, embodies intelligent responsiveness. This agility preserves energy and maximizes resource acquisition, optimizing survival odds. Health management emerges as a practical and philosophical imperative. Injuries, infections, or illnesses multiply risks in remote settings. Basic wilderness first aid skills, cleaning wounds, managing snake bites, stabilizing fractures, and recognizing hypothermia or heat stroke become life-saving. Knowledge of medicinal plants complements physical remedies, often relying on local ethnobotanical wisdom to reduce pain, inflammation, or infection. Maintaining hygiene through simple practices, using clean water, avoiding contamination, and managing waste mitigates disease spread. Nutrition synergy supports immune function, further preventing illness. This holistic attention to health ensures survival beyond bare existence. Tools and gear embody functional extensions of survival competence. Quality choices prioritize multi-purpose items: knives, axes, fire starters, cordage, water containers that support core tasks from shelter building to signaling. Mastering tool maintenance and improvisation, such as fashioning cordage from bushes or repairing torn fabric, extend equipment lifespan. Primitive technologies like friction fire lighting, stone tools, and bone needles connect survivors to ancestral methods applicable when modern gear fails or is absent. The synergy of traditional knowledge and modern tools builds redundancy and resilience essential for long-term survival. Communication and signaling balance caution with hope. While remaining hidden may protect against natural hazards or human threats, signaling remains a lifeline to rescue. Patterns of fires, ground markers, sound signals, and visual indicators like mirrors or brightly colored clothing transform the wilderness landscape into a coded language for aid. Scheduling signals and conserving energy foster sustainable engagement, reducing frustration while broadcasting hope. Mastering cultural standards of distress such as 3 fires arranged in a triangle or smoke signals is critical in translating survival into salvation. Social dynamics, though absent in solo survival, thrive in group settings where collaboration multiplies effectiveness. Roles emerge naturally: scouting, food gathering, shelter maintenance, signaling enhancing efficiency and morale. Social cohesion becomes psychological armor, distributing burdens and preventing isolation-induced despair. Mutual support, conflict resolution, and shared leadership crystallize group survival into an adaptive endeavor, reflecting humanity's deep evolutionary roots. Sustainability perspectives counteract the typical survival mentality of immediate extraction through nurturing reciprocity with nature. Responsible harvesting, leaving no trace, and respecting wildlife cycles honor ecological balance. These practices ensure resources persist, supporting not just the survivor but the environment that sustains them. Finally, the long-term wilderness survival journey integrates body, mind, and environment into a holistic dance of existence. It challenges basic assumptions, demands humility before nature's might, and reveals hidden wells of strength. Each day survived extends not only temporal sum but deepens connection with the raw pulse of life itself. Through introspection and action, the survivor transcends mere endurance, embracing a rich tapestry of experience that shapes identity and legacy. In this relentless engagement with the wild, survival becomes a profound story of human tenacity, wisdom, and hope stretching beyond horizons unseen. Survival in extreme environments requires a profound understanding that transcends basic rules and techniques. It demands an intimate dialogue between the individual and the natural world, where every decision ripples with consequences beyond immediate perception. As the days stretch into weeks and months, the survivor becomes not merely a passive inhabitant but an active participant in a complex ecosystem governed by cycles, rhythms, and balance. The most successful long-term survivors embrace this relationship, reading nature's subtle signs like an ancient language, anticipating changes, and drawing sustenance not just from resources but from the land's wisdom itself. Central to this dance is the mastery of energy, both physiological and psychological. The body functions within a delicate energy budget, allocating fuel for warmth, movement, repair, and thought. Without regular nourishment, this budget drains quickly, triggering fatigue, impaired judgment, and loss of coordination. Understanding one's limits becomes essential, requiring a daily negotiation between exertion and rest. The survivor learns to conserve strength by prioritizing tasks, securing shelter, procuring water, and signaling come first, while exploration or scouting wait for moments of replenished energy. At night, rest must be deep and restorative, with the shelter providing sanctuary against both elements and the mind's relentless turmoil. Hydration remains the invisible thread weaving through every survival scenario. The body can endure weeks without food but only days without water. Long-term survival pivots around a reliable water strategy, harvesting rainwater when possible, tapping springs, or constructing catchment systems. Deep knowledge of topography reveals potential water points concealed within valleys or beneath rock formations. Techniques such as solar stills harness the sun's energy to extract moisture, transforming the harshness of aridity into opportunity. Even dew collection in the early morning delivers precious hydration. The survivor keeps vigil over water quality, always mindful of contamination risks from parasites or bacteria that can transform a lifeline into a deadly hazard. Securing food over extended periods requires evolution beyond immediate foraging to methodologies that combine efficiency, sustainability, and adaptability. While initial days might demand scavenging berries or edible plants, subsequent phases embrace hunting, fishing, and food preservation. Hunting transforms from reactive to proactive, with traps and snares placed strategically in animal pathways. Fish are caught using crafted implements adapted to local waterways, spears, nets, or lines fashioned from natural fibers. A keen eye watches animal behavior, moon phases influencing migration, and seasonal cycles dictating food availability. Preservation methods: smoking meat over low fires, drying in sunlit areas, or salting enable stockpiling for lean periods, extending food security beyond immediate capture. A sanctuary is forged through shelter, morphing from rudimentary cover to a fortified habitat responding to seasonal demands. Crafting shelters with layered insulation ensures warmth during cold nights and protection from wind or rain. Proper ventilation avoids moisture buildup which could sicken the inhabitant. The novice rapidly evolves into the architect of survival, selecting locations optimal for drainage, safety from wildlife, and proximity to resources. Improving upon initial shelters with features like fire pits, raised platforms, and windbreaks converts mere refuge into a home. The shelter's psychological meaning is paramount. It becomes the heart of survival where hope is nurtured amidst vulnerability. Psychological resilience permeates all aspects of extended survival. The mind battles loneliness, despair, and the relentless pressure of uncertainty. Establishing daily rituals, cleaning tools, maintaining fires, journaling, or mapping surroundings anchors mental health. Survivors often recount how discipline transformed overwhelm into manageable segments, converting helplessness into agency. Visualization techniques reinforce hope, reminding the survivor of loved ones and future freedom. Mindfulness practices, such as focused breathing or grounding exercises, dissipate anxiety and panic, channeling energy into deliberate action. This resilient mindset evolves into a lifeline intricately woven alongside physical survival skills. Communication with the outside world, however tenuous, sustains hope and provides a tangible link to rescue. Survivors master signaling techniques that transform fire, smoke, sound, or movement into universal distress language. Patterns such as 3 fires arranged in a triangle or rhythmic whistle blasts are understood across cultures and increase chances of detection. Signaling devices, mirrors, whistles, bright fabric fragments are deployed judiciously, balancing energy expenditure with probability of success. The clearing chosen for signaling is often a hub of survival activity, symbolizing the merging of preparedness and opportunity. Negotiating the wilderness requires an intimate understanding of navigation. The survivor reads celestial bodies, sun positions, and natural landmarks, transforming the wild into a map tableau. Moss growth, ant trails, prevailing winds, and animal behavior all act as directional guides. Tools such as compasses or improvised instruments like shadow sticks amplify this innate sense. Navigation knowledge converts the wilderness from a maze to a canvas where pathways emerge through observation and experience. Tool-making and maintenance form the practical backbone supporting survival. The ability to craft, repair, and innovate with available materials empowers the survivor. Crafting knives from stones or metals, fashioning bows or spears, weaving baskets for gathering all extend capacity and endurance. Tool maintenance, sharpening blades, waterproofing cordage, reinforcing shelters ensures longevity and reliability. Learning primitive technologies connects the survivor to ancestral wisdom, fostering creativity in problem solving. This craftsmanship bridges the rawness of nature and the ingenuity of human spirit. Managing health and medical emergencies becomes increasingly critical. Cuts, infections, sprains, and insect bites can escalate if untreated, threatening survival. Wilderness first aid knowledge includes wound cleaning, splinting fractures, and managing heat or cold-related conditions. Knowledge of medicinal plants like willow bark as pain relief or aloe vera for burns provides valuable alternatives in the absence of pharmaceuticals. Hygiene practices, such as safe water use, waste disposal away from living areas, and regular cleaning, minimize disease risk. Proactive health care balances treatment with prevention, maintaining physical readiness. Resource management symbolizes the transition from immediate survival to sustained living. Efficient use of food, water, fuel, and materials conserves energy and extends viability. Recycling materials, repurposing damaged gear, and planning for scarcity reflect strategic skill. Survivors track supply levels meticulously, adjusting consumption and gathering accordingly. This intentional economy transforms survival from precarious endurance to a sustainable practice supported by foresight. Adaptability remains a testament to human resilience. The wilderness is unpredictable, with wildfires, floods, droughts, or storms altering landscapes swiftly. The survivor's flexibility altering migration routes, changing food strategies, or reinforcing shelters ensures continued survival. Perpetual learning through observation encourages innovation and prepares the individual to meet evolving challenges. This dynamic responsiveness epitomizes survival mastery. Embracing solitude without surrendering to isolation is another profound challenge. The survivor often navigates psychological shifts, overcoming loneliness through established mental routines, affirmations, and connection to nature's rhythms. The wilderness, while vast, offers companionship in sunrises, the rustle of leaves, bird songs, and starry skies. Cultivating this connection channels peace and strength, transforming solitude into spiritual sustenance. Balancing hope and pragmatism anchors long-term survival. While rescue may not be imminent, preparing and signaling maintain connection to civilization. Simultaneously, establishing self-reliance through food, water, shelter, and medical care nurtures independence. This dual mindset fuels persistence by integrating external aspiration with internal resourcefulness. Finally, the journey of survival itself becomes transformative. Beyond physical challenge, it is an exploration of limits of the body, mind, and spirit. The survivor emerges profoundly changed, bearing wisdom etched from hardship, a deeper respect for nature, and a renewed appreciation for human resilience. Each day lived in harmony with the environment deepens one's understanding of life's interconnectedness and the fragile balance sustaining all. The wilderness, once a formidable adversary, reveals itself as an enduring teacher, shaping stories of survival into legacies of courage and hope beyond measure. Surviving in the wilderness is a physical challenge, but the psychological battle is perhaps the most daunting and complex arena a person must face. Beyond the immediate fears and dangers lies a web of emotional, cognitive, and mental effects that ripple through days, weeks, or months of isolation, uncertainty, and somatic stress. The wilderness imposes a stark confrontation with solitude, an environment stripped of familiar social connections and modern distractions, creating a space where the mind oscillates between empowerment and despair. Understanding these psychological dynamics and mastering the mental terrain as skillfully as the physical environment is essential for anyone seeking not only to survive but to endure and thrive through long-term wilderness isolation. The first psychological response to being lost or thrust into survival mode is typically acute stress, driven by the body's fight-or-flight mechanism. This burst of adrenaline sharpens focus temporarily but rapidly depletes mental and physical resources. Panic can follow, clouding judgment with urgent but often irrational impulses running in circles, making hasty decisions, or succumbing to overwhelming fear. Such reactions, though natural, are counterproductive in survival scenarios where patience, strategy, and calm endurance govern outcomes. Learning to tame these initial emotional storms through controlled breathing, grounding techniques, and redirecting focus becomes the first step in regaining dominance over the survival situation. Isolation stands out as one of the most cruel psychological trials. The absence of social contact strips away a key pillar of human existence. Loneliness creeps in silently, expanding to anxiety or deep despair. Studies show that prolonged social isolation activates neural pathways associated with pain and distress akin to physical hunger or cold. This emotional starvation strains the mind, potentially leading to depression, hallucinations, and deteriorating cognitive function. However, this isolation also offers opportunities, moments to develop profound self-awareness, tap into internal reserves of strength, and connect deeply with nature's rhythms. Mindfulness and mental routines become vital tools to maintain mental health, interrupting the spiral of negative thoughts by anchoring the mind in the present moment. Fear of the unknown fuels anxiety throughout survival experiences. The mind invents threats: dangerous animals lurking unseen, incoming storms, or the possibility of never being found that magnify stress beyond the immediate. This anticipatory anxiety can immobilize action or lead to reckless gambles in desperation. Effective survivors practice mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios, transforming unknown fears into manageable, strategized risks. They balance vigilance with rational analysis, learning to moderate anxiety's grip by pointing attention toward achievable goals and tangible actions. Cognitive fatigue accumulates, challenging memory, decision-making, and problem-solving abilities crucial for survival. The brain under stress uses more energy, depleting fuel reserves as physical energy drains, especially when sleep is disrupted by cold, noise, or discomfort. Survivors learn to allocate mental energy wisely, conserving cognitive load by focusing on immediate priorities, chunking information, and developing habits that reduce decision complexity. Reconceptualizing struggles into manageable segments prevents overwhelm, making survival a series of achievable challenges instead of an insurmountable crisis. Positive psychological growth frequently emerges amidst adversity. Wilderness survival encourages development of resilience, the capacity to withstand, adapt, and recover from challenging conditions. Each success, from building shelter to finding water, fortifies self-efficacy and imbues a growing sense of mastery. This empowerment fosters autonomy and increases confidence, reducing feelings of helplessness. Many survivors describe a heightened sense of purpose, emotional intensity, and connection to self and environment arising from prolonged wilderness exposure. Mindfulness and heightened sensory awareness often accompany survival experiences. By necessity, survivors focus deeply on their immediate surroundings, listening to subtle sounds, observing changing light and weather, and sensing shifts in terrain or wildlife behavior. This present-focused attention reduces rumination on fears and past regrets, fostering a state of flow that enhances mental clarity and emotional regulation. This mindful mode allows the mind to operate efficiently under stress, cultivating calm amidst chaos. Depression and hopelessness are significant risks over prolonged wilderness isolation. These states, often triggered by perceived failure, loss of routine, or persistent uncertainty about rescue, can lead to withdrawal and decreased survival behaviors. Strategies to combat depressive symptoms include establishing structured routines, engaging in physical activity, setting small goals, and maintaining hope through visualization of positive outcomes. Reinforcing internal dialogues emphasizing strength, purpose, and progress maintains motivation despite difficult conditions. Post-traumatic stress symptoms may develop when survival situations involve traumatic events such as injury, encounters with predators, or near-death experiences. Intrusive memories, hypervigilance, and anxiety episodes surface, adversely affecting function. Early mental coping strategies, social support if available, and psychological self-care techniques, deep breathing, grounding, meditation help mitigate these effects. In some cases, professional intervention becomes necessary during or following survival experiences to process trauma and promote healing. Sleep disruption margins the survival mind's struggle. Lack of sleep impairs concentration, memory, and emotional balance, worsening physical vulnerability. Survivors learn to see short, restorative rest periods, creating comfortable, secure shelters that buffer environmental noise and cold. Napping strategically during safer periods balances circadian rhythms with unpredictable external conditions. Adequate sleep supports decision-making, energy restoration, and emotional resilience. Emotional regulation plays a critical role in maintaining survival capacity. Intense fears, frustration, anger, or despair arise often. Managing these emotions prevents them from overwhelming practical action. Techniques range from physical exercise to dissipate tension, to mental reframing of challenges as opportunities for learning. Survivors often benefit from expressing emotions through journaling, vocalization if alone, or controlled venting to process their psychological state healthily. The interaction of physical pain and psychological distress compounds survival challenges. Chronic discomfort from injuries, blisters, or environmental exposure triggers mood disturbances. Managing pain with distraction, controlled breathing, or natural remedies supports psychological endurance. Recognition that pain is often temporary, coupled with active problem solving to mitigate sources of pain, strengthens resolve. Social connection needs continue even in isolated survival. Imagining conversations, creating mental companions, or picturing loved ones provides psychological comfort and reduce feelings of loneliness. Survivors recount how these mental simulations foster a retained sense of belonging and support emotional stability. Problem solving under stress is both a challenge and a skill cultivated over time. Survivors learn to break complex survival tasks into manageable steps, weigh pros and cons of actions logically, and adapt plans flexibly when circumstances shift. This cognitive flexibility enhances adaptability and reduces panic-driven mistakes. Resilience builds cumulatively. It is forged through repeated encounters with stress tempered by recovery periods. Physical preparedness aids mental resilience. Nutrition, hydration, rest support cognitive function. Mental training before and during survival, such as visualization, meditation, and stress inoculation, primes individuals for sustained stress management. Finally, the wilderness fosters profound personal transformation. Survivors often emerge with reshaped perspectives on life's priorities, increased emotional depth, and enhanced appreciation for nature's rhythms and their own inner strength. The harsh lessons of survival inform a renewed sense of purpose, resilience, and humility, integrating psychological survival with physical endurance into a holistic journey of human potential realized amid adversity. This journey is less about conquering nature and more about harmonizing with it, an enduring dance of survival that transcends mere existence to become a vibrant testament to life itself. Extending beyond physical survival, the psychological journey within the wild's embrace unfolds as a complex, evolving narrative that shapes not only the manner of survival but the survivor themselves. The wilderness strips away layers of modern life, leaving an individual facing raw existence with only their mind and instincts, a confrontation that reveals hidden strengths, exposes vulnerabilities, and transforms perceptions of self and the world. This psychological odyssey during long-term wilderness survival is marked by shifting emotional landscapes, mental challenges, and opportunities for profound growth or perilous decline. In the immediate aftermath of becoming lost or isolated, the mind plunges into heightened stress, a natural reaction designed by evolution to prepare the body for conflict or flight. This acute stress response floods the system with adrenaline, enhancing alertness, strength, and rapid decision-making. However, this state is unsustainable. Adrenaline depletes quickly, leaving the survivor vulnerable to exhaustion. The crucial challenge becomes learning to regulate stress to transition from reactive panic to calm, deliberate problem-solving. Achieving this mental balance dictates the difference between wasted energy and sustained endurance. The threat of the unknown amplifies anxiety and fear in survival contexts. Unseen dangers, wild animals, treacherous terrain, sudden weather changes loom large in the imagination, often exacerbated by lack of information or experience. This fear, while protective if it sharpens caution, can become paralyzing if it spirals into catastrophizing. Survivors must master the art of grounding their thoughts through observation, focusing on immediate facts rather than imagined threats. Techniques such as mental rehearsal, envisioning contingency plans, or breaking fears into tactical challenges empower decision-making despite uncertainty. Loneliness and social isolation present formidable psychological hurdles. Humans are innately social creatures, and severance from communal bonds can lead to feelings of abandonment, despair, and fragmentation of identity. The absence of conversation, emotional support, and shared experience heightens vulnerability to depression and anxiety. To combat this, survivors often develop internal dialogues, construct mental companions, or engage deeply with the natural environment as a form of psychological sustenance. Developing mindfulness practices, attending to sensory experiences, observing nature's rhythms, engaging with plants, animals, and weather replaces social interaction with a connectedness to surroundings and self. Cognitive function risks decline over time due to cumulative physical deprivation, disrupted sleep, and chronic stress. Fatigue impairs memory, slows reaction times, and reduces problem-solving capacity. Survivors learn to partition cognitive efforts, focusing on immediate, practical tasks while setting aside overwhelming contemplation. Rest periods, structured routines, and rituals anchor mental stability and renew cognitive reserves. Adaptable thinking, breaking complex survival tasks into simple manageable steps, fosters resilience and creativity. Emotional rollercoasters characterize prolonged survival. Anger, frustration, despair, hope, and joy cycle amid fluctuating circumstances. Survivors who accept emotional flux without judgment maintain more stable functioning. Expression of feelings, whether through vocalizations, writing, or physical release, prevents buildup of detrimental tension. Recognizing emotional states as transient rather than fixed impairment supports mental health. Exposure to the wilderness often catalyzes personal growth, forging resilience and a redefined sense of self. Confronting adversity empowers survivors with confidence rooted in accomplished challenges. The natural environment itself becomes a source of healing. Quiet beauty and grandeur elicit awe and gratitude, fostering positive emotions. Many report heightened self-awareness, empathy, and perspectives on life's priorities post-survival. This transformation sustains motivation to endure when physical challenges peak. Sleep deprivation remains a critical threat. Environmental factors, temperature extremes, noises, discomfort, and psychological disturbance frequently disrupt restorative sleep. Survivors innovate by creating sheltered, comfortable resting places, timing rest with natural rhythms, and using relaxation techniques. Although fragmented, even short naps restore essential cognitive and physical functioning. Physical pain and discomfort intertwine with psychological suffering. Chronic injuries, insect bites, fatigue undermine morale and inhibit function. Survivors use a combination of distraction, physical remedies, mindfulness, and problem-solving to manage pain effectively. Understanding pain as temporary and controllable imbues hope and reduces despair. Post-traumatic stress reactions may onset due to intense encounters with life-threatening events. Intrusive memories, hypervigilance, and emotional numbing can persist, affecting recovery and function. Early coping mechanisms focusing on grounding and self-care mitigate symptoms, but some survivors require psychological support post-rescue to heal fully. Maintaining a survivalist mindset incorporates flexibility and a learning orientation. Psychological rigidity in the face of changing conditions impairs adaptation and growth. Embracing uncertainty, experimenting with new strategies, and viewing setbacks as learning opportunities sustain hope and innovation. This growth mindset serves as a mental survival toolkit complementing physical skills. The integration of body, mind, environment, and spirit underlies enduring survival. Psychological well-being supports physical health and vice versa. Engaging fully with each moment, fostering connection to nature, and honoring personal limits creates sustainable survival rhythms. Over time, this holistic engagement deepens meaning from adversity, transforming survival into a life-affirming experience with lasting impacts. Thus, long-term wilderness survival transcends mere endurance. It embodies a profound journey of mind and soul, testing and expanding human resilience. The lessons learned echo beyond the wild into everyday life, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to confront isolation, uncertainty, and hardship with grace, ingenuity, and hope. Survival is a story written not just by the elements or the circumstances we face, but most profoundly by the choices we make when confronted with the unknown. The practical lessons garnered from those who have endured the unthinkable, lost inside caves, stranded in forests, adrift on open seas, or isolated in vast deserts reveal a shared blueprint of resilience, wisdom, and hope we can all draw upon when adversity strikes. From their stories rises a vital truth: survival is less about the resources you have and more about the mindset you cultivate, the knowledge you carry, and the spirit you wield. The tapestry of human endurance is woven through these elements, threading through the real and the possible, the tested and the imagined. In the real world, survival situations are seldom textbook scenarios. They are messy, unpredictable, and laden with emotional complexity. Yet, every expert survivalist story echoes a consistent refrain: preparation matters, calmness saves lives, and adaptability determines outcomes. Preparation isn't just carrying the right tools or supplies, it is about thorough knowledge of environments, honing skills before they are needed, and fostering mental toughness. Knowing the basics of shelter building, water purification, fire lighting, and navigation transforms daunting wilderness expanses into manageable challenges. But understanding one's psychological responses under stress, fear, despair, or panic, and mastering techniques to regulate those feelings ensures survival extends beyond mere hours to days, weeks, or even longer. Many who have faced these extreme situations emphasize one overriding factor: the power of mindset. Fear is natural and protective when it triggers caution, but it can be debilitating when it stifles action. Survivors often highlight the moment they stopped fighting panic or hopelessness and focused instead on small achievable goals: a waterproof fire, mapping their surroundings, rationing supplies, or sending distress signals. These moments crystallize survival into manageable tasks, build confidence, prevent despair, and create a forward motion that can be life-saving. This psychological resilience, the indomitable will to live, is often described as the single most critical survival tool, one that can be nurtured through training, meditation, visualization, and experience. Technology and gear undeniably increase survival odds: GPS devices, satellite messengers, all-weather clothing, compact first aid kits, but none replaces the primal human skills that have sustained civilizations for millennia. Primitive survival skills, such as recognizing edible plants, crafting cordage, or starting fires without matches, remain invaluable. Such knowledge can bridge survival gaps when modern equipment fails or is lost. Learning from indigenous peoples and longtime explorers provides deep insight into living harmoniously with nature. The wilderness does not just challenge, it teaches. It demands respect and offers clues for those who observe attentively. One must never underestimate the psychological weight of isolation and uncertainty. Survival is often a mental marathon, not a sprint. Long periods without human contact amplify loneliness, affecting decision-making and mood. Those who manage to keep hope alive by maintaining routines, creating mental narratives, or finding comfort in nature's presence push through the darkest hours. Mindfulness and emotional regulation become anchors. They keep panic at bay and focus sharp. Successful survivors sometimes describe a higher sense of connection to nature, to themselves, or even to a greater purpose that propels them onward. From a practical standpoint, understanding natural environments deeply influences survival success. Knowing how water gathers in caves, how animal trails guide to resources in forests, how currents and birds indicate land at sea, or how to find shade and water in deserts can dramatically extend viable survival time. Each environment demands unique adaptations and skills, but all share the principle that observation and knowledge transform threat into opportunity. Preparedness entails studying these environments, practicing skills frequently, and mentally rehearsing scenarios before they arise. Stories of survival are also stories of community, whether with rescuers or fellow survivors. Communication, signaling, and cooperation amplify chances of rescue. Even solitary survivors must engage the world through signals, noises, or visual cues that bridge isolation with hope. Collaborative survival situations highlight human resilience and resourcefulness through shared effort, mutual encouragement, and distributed tasks. Trust and clear communication fortify morale while ensuring efficient use of limited resources. Health maintenance in survival contexts bridges nutrition, hygiene, injury prevention, and first aid. Small infections, untreated wounds, or dehydration can swiftly become fatal. Knowledge of natural medicines and hygiene practices extends capacities. Understanding the body's signals fatigue, dehydration, hypothermia allows timely action. Physical fitness prior to survival greatly enhances endurance capacity and injury resistance. Importantly, survival experiences profoundly transform those who endure. Beyond physical scars, survivors often speak of deep psychological shifts, greater patience, humility, strengthened identity, and gratitude for life's simplest gifts. Their stories inspire others, contributing to a culture of preparedness and respect for nature's power. These narratives reinforce that survival is not only an individual feat but a shared human saga connecting us across time and place. In embracing the lessons of survival, one can also cultivate a philosophy that enriches everyday life, reverence for nature's complexity, mindfulness of present moments, resilience in the face of challenges, and an understanding of human limits and possibilities. Each experience of survival sharpens our appreciation for safety and community, fostering stewardship that transcends mere survival to embrace thriving. As this journey through the wild's harsh realities and intricate beauties concludes, one message resonates above all: survival is within the reach of anyone willing to prepare, observe, adapt, and persevere. It is not reserved for epic heroes alone but accessible through learned skills, mental training, and deep respect for nature's rules. With each breath, decision, and step, the story unfolds, a story not just of existing but of living fiercely, patiently, and wisely amid uncertainty. To all listeners, may these insights seed preparedness, ignite curiosity, and inspire confidence to face life's unexpected wildernesses, internal or external. The power to endure and thrive lies not just in gear or circumstance, but within the mind's unyielding flame. Thank you for sharing this exploration of survival's profound dance, and may your path always be guided by knowledge, calm, and courage. Stay safe, stay curious, and may the spirit of resilience walk with you wherever you go.